As I was driving in today and I knew it was podcast day, I always have a smile on my face. But when I knew that I was going to be here with Tony Sanfelipo, the legend in the motorcycle community, and someone that is also my friend, someone I have known for over 30 years. Tony, I couldn't believe when I was thinking about how long I've known you, and it's been over 30 years. So I want to welcome to the Tell Them You Mean Business podcast, my good friend, the motorcycle legend, Tony Sanfelipo.
Oh, it's great to be here, Jason. I mean, this place has really changed since it's only been, 5-6 years since I've been here?
Yeah.
A lot of changes.
Yeah. So Tony, you and I worked together when I was a pup. I was a year out of law school. It was actually 1993 when I started with Mike Hupy, and you had been here since 1992. 91. Okay, sorry. I thought it was 92. It is crazy how much time. We were young then.
Yeah.
I mean, you still look the same.
I still had black hair.
You did.
Turned chrome.
Yeah, exactly. So welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to be here with you. I miss you that I don't see you every day here in the office because it was always a pleasure. But I'm really happy that you're here today as we're getting ready to move into motorcycle riding season. To have someone like you that's done so much in the motorcycle community is just such a good guy. I just want to say thank you in advance for you coming here today.
I was so happy when Joe called me.
Yeah.
I said, don't they ever want me for podcasts or for doing Behind the Handlebars with Eric anymore? But
well, you're here, and I want to talk about so the audience can get to know you a little better. Obviously, most everyone that's going to listen to this is going to know who you are, but you've done so much in the community, and I just want to talk a little bit about that. First, when did you first get excited about riding? I mean, as we get older now, I know this seems like forever ago, but tell the listeners when you first got interested in motorcycles and how that came about.
Well, I was in high school at Washington High School.
Okay.
And I used to see these guys coming by in these old ratty looking choppers, this is back in the 60s, 1963, 62. And they'd have the fenders chopped off and the tanks were all dented, just looked like parsed them all together. But those are why they call them choppers. They chopped all the factory stuff off for racing and things like that. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. I really like those guys. So my senior year in high school, I started riding. My parents would never let me ride a motorcycle or buy a motorcycle. So I had to go sneak around and ride friends' bikes in 1964. But I graduated in high school in 1964. And in 65, I bought a 1951 Panhead tank shift. It had the shifter on the tank, 3 speeds, old Panhead. I paid $350 for that motorcycle.
Wow.
Now you can't buy a seat for $350. But, a lot of people, and I urge people to take motorcycle riders courses. My riders course that day was a friend of mine trailered the bike to his house. And we went in the alley, his alley over on 37th and Lloyd or something like that. It was over in that area. And he showed me how to shift it. And it had the old foot rocker clutch. He showed me how to work the foot clutch. And he says, okay, just point it down there, put your heel back, put it down where it says the lever to where it said 1, and try not to hit any garages. That was my motorcycle instruction.
And how did it go when you first took off?
It was a little wobbly at first. It was a little bit hand-foot coordination, but I got it right away. And I've been riding since then. 59 years I've been riding. So
is it an immediate love? Like, did you know the first day you got on the bike and you had that lesson that's not a lesson? Did you know that you were hooked?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it becomes a part of your body. It's like an extension of your body. I've never been without I was without a motorcycle since 1965. I was without a motorcycle for about 7 or 8 months. When my second daughter, Desiree, was born, I was between jobs. I wasn't between jobs. I just started a new job, but you had to work 6 months before you got health insurance.
Okay.
And I got hurt, and I couldn't work. I was a line foreman for Asplin, the guys that trim those trees around power lines.
Right.
So I couldn't work while my hand was healing, and so no health insurance. And she was just born.
Ooh.
So at that time I had a chopper. I sold that bike for I think $900, and that paid the maternity bill.
Oh God.
And then as soon as I could scrape up enough money, I bought another bike again.
Yeah.
And I haven't been without a bike since.
When you started riding in the 60s, like you described in high school, how many people were riding? I know now it's so mainstream, and not only the people that have been riding for 50 years are riding, but also the weekend warriors and everyone else. Talk about what it was like to be a rider back when you were a senior in high school and in the 60s.
Yeah. Well, in those days, you didn't have to go take a special test for a motorcycle. If you had a driver's license, that automatically grandfathered you in, and you can just ride it. You could drive anything you wanted to.
Okay.
So I didn't have to go take a special test to get a special cycle endorsement. And at that time, there was only two guys that rode motorcycle in Washington High School. It was me and a friend of mine named Michael Borshak. We were the only guys that rode motorcycles. And there was very few. There's a lot of guys riding around on those little Cushman scooters.
Okay.
But not anybody riding motorcycles, big motorcycles. It was me and Mike. And at that time, I only knew one woman that rode a motorcycle. Now, I think it's 14%, or maybe it might even be higher now. Maybe 20, as high as 20% of the people that ride are women now.
That's awesome.
But if you saw a woman riding a motorcycle, that was a shock, I knew one woman I used to see her down at the lakefront riding, an old panhead. But very few people were riding motorcycles. And at that time, motorcycles were looked at, riders were looked at like, those guys are like convicts or criminals or something, They had a bad reputation because of all the Hollywood movies.
Right.
Now all movie stars, everybody's riding motorcycles.
Right. So when you first started riding, what type of riding would you do? Would it just be around the city, or did you immediately start doing the long rides and those type of things?
Not really long rides. Through the city, that's when the freeway was just finished when I started riding motorcycles.
Okay.
It was a lot different than the freeway looks like now. It was just 2 lanes and went from the west side down to the lakefront, not even to the lakefront. So I took the freeway when I wanted to go downtown, but on weekends is when we would go out, and we'd go maybe up north, sometimes in Minnesota. Once in a while, we'd go out to Indiana, to Valparaiso they had drag races in Valparaiso, Indiana. That'd be a long trip for us in those days.
Yeah. You have the nickname Pan. When did you get that, and tell the listeners why you got that nickname? All
right. A friend of mine named Denny Doherty gave me that name. He also rode Panhead. But I was riding Panheads for the first 14 years. And you can't take a motorcycle name. Somebody has to give it to you.
Okay.
And then he gave me that name. He just started calling me Pan. And then that morphed to, because there was another guy named Pan, and I was telling everybody he's an imposter. So they changed the name to Tony Pan.
Okay.
So it distinguished me from this other guy that nobody knew or liked or whatever it was.
And it came about because you like to ride Panheads.
Oh yeah, I love Panheads.
Okay.
It was a big improvement over Knucklehead, engineering wise. Not as good as the Shovelhead. I think the Shovelhead and the Evo motors were the best motors that Harley put out. But Panheads somehow got under my skin, and I love them. I love them more than Knuckleheads or Shovelheads. I'd rather ride a Panhead. I still ride a Panhead.
So you've been so active over the years, not only as a rider, but, kind of, I'd say an activist trying to make things better for riders. And can you tell the listeners what ABATE of Wisconsin is and how you founded it in 1974, if I have the year right?
Right, that's 1974. Well, the helmet law came into effect in Wisconsin in about, I think it was 1968. It was a product of the 1966 Safety Act, the Federal Safety Act from NHTSA. But nobody knew about it. They weren't enforcing it, really. And I got stopped one time. It might have been 68 or 69. I got pulled over, and the police officer said, "Hey, you're missing something." And I'm looking around my bike. I thought something fell off. I said, "What am I missing?" He goes, "Where's your helmet?" And I said, "Helmet? What helmet?" I didn't even know there was a requirement. Then it wasn't publicized. Nobody knew it.
Okay.
Kind of snuck up on us. So everybody sat around in bars grumbling because we didn't want to wear helmets. And not everybody, but there was a bunch of us that didn't want to wear helmets. But after a couple of years of grumbling and arguing and complaining about it, we started saying, "Hey, why are we complaining about it? Why don't we do something?"
Right.
And then a magazine came out in 1971 called Easy Riders Magazine. And in their second issue number 2, Lou Kimsey, who started the magazine, had written an article voicing what I had just said to these people in Milwaukee, saying, "Why are we standing around complaining?" He said something like, "Stop shouting from the rooftops and go to the Capitol and complain." So we started organizing. It took us a couple of years. 1972, I joined a group called the Concerned Motorcyclists of Wisconsin. And they made me secretary because I was the only guy to know how to type. So I guess that's an honor of some sorts. Anyhow, I stayed with Concerned Cyclists for 2 years. And ABATE was actually in Wisconsin before I started it. There was a guy that was the voice of Easy Riders. Easy Riders had people from around the country kind of keep an eye on what was going on in their particular state and send that information to the news. It was something called Easy News. brown pages in Easy Riders.
Right.
There's a 3-month lead time on magazines. So if you're reading the news in a magazine, it's already 3 months old.
Right.
But the Easy News was printed on like a rag paper instead of the polished glossy paper.
Mm-hmm.
So they could hold that off until they're ready to go to print and slam it in. But it was still probably a month old news. So this guy would call in or write in and give them the information about what's going on in our state capitol regarding the helmet law or anything else that's going on. So that's the way Easy Riders was working across the country. When I left Concerned Motorcyclists of Wisconsin, a partner of mine, John Brajas, who owned a Bizarre Cycles up in Fond du Lac, a cycle shop, we decided to take over this Easy Riders position in Wisconsin. But I said, instead of just sending news in, why don't we start a membership organization? Because other states are already doing that. And so that's what we did.
And that was ABATE.
That was ABATE.
And was the purpose of ABATE when you first started it in 1974 then to deal with the helmet law and other laws that impacted motorcycles?
Helmet laws and customization laws. At that time, there was the Hot Rod Association and the van guys. There's a lot of van clubs. They were chopping their cars and lowering the roofs and cheering the frames and doing all that kind of custom work. There was a lot of legislation trying to limit that amount of stuff going on too, because they thought it was unsafe. So we kind of banded with those car guys and van guys and started fighting helmet laws for us, but also customization laws because we wanted to personalize our vehicles.
And then what you were doing is you were going to the state legislature and lobbying for changes in the laws.
During the week, a lot. I spent a lot of hours in the state capitol. And when we started ABATE, at that time, it was called the Brotherhood Against Totalitarian Enactments. So we said, yeah, that's what we want, because we read about it in the newspaper or in the magazine. Mm-hmm. And we started trying to tell everybody what ABATE was about. And everybody was saying, what does totalitarian mean? So we had to look it up because we didn't know ourselves. Oh, that's what it means. Okay, yeah, sign me up. But we didn't know at first. Now, today, most ABATE chapters around the country have changed their name to American Bikers Aiming Towards Education or American Bikers. And they changed it to something positive. They wanted to be for something rather than against something.
Right.
But I said, no, I want to stay true to what the original form was. So it's Wisconsin, I think Wyoming. There's only 1 or 2 other states in the country that kept the original name aiming against the totalitarian enactments. So I'm kind of proud that we kept that. And we also got a bad moniker after we repealed the helmet law in we beat it in 77, but we had to go back in 78 to have it voted on because they ran out of time in the legislature.
Okay.
They started calling us the helmet people or the helmet guys. And a lot of people said, oh no, we're diverse. We have a lot of different issues we deal with, not just the helmet. And they kind of walked away from that like they're kind of ashamed of being called the helmet guys. And I said, hey, I'm proud of being one of the helmet guys.
Yeah.
And we didn't fight saying helmets were bad. We said we should have a choice. If you want to wear a helmet, that's fine. Go ahead. In fact, if the government said you couldn't wear a helmet, we'd fight for your right to be able to wear a helmet.
Right.
We just didn't like that totalitarian enactment where they just slam something on you without.
You want to be able to make your own decisions.
Right, our own decisions.
Now, it's my understanding that you've testified in every hearing on motorcycle legislation since 1974. Could that possibly be true?
Well, it's true up to about late 80s or early 90s. I was still going and testifying, even in the 90s. In fact, Mike Hupy even came and testified a couple times for us on some issues. But I wasn't a regular speaker anymore. I was training other guys how to speak and lobby. I was doing that. But yeah, up until about the early 90s, I testified at every hearing. Not only on motorcycle issues, I debated Bronson LaFollette, the Attorney General, on the RICO Act when they first put the RICO Act in Wisconsin. I know it was meant to go after organized crime, mafia, and stuff like that, but we seen them using the RICO Act to go after motorcycle clubs. Not gangs, clubs. There's no such thing as a motorcycle gang. It says MC, not MG.
Yeah. People
can have their own opinion, but not everybody that rides a motorcycle is a criminal.
Well, that's for sure. I ride a motorcycle. I'm definitely not a criminal. So you started with Hupy and Abraham. I know it may have been a different name when you first started, but how did you get involved with Mike Hupy and get started in 1991 with the firm? Yeah,
I was the regional rep for ABATE in Wisconsin in the Milwaukee area. It was basically Milwaukee and Waukesha area at that time. and I was giving a speech at Gary Fordham's Labor Temple on West Avenue in Waukesha.
Another one of our former investigators that worked for us for 30 years.
Yep. And Mike Hupy had just joined ABATE, and he was also starting to advertise in our newsletter, and I was also the newsletter editor.
Uh-huh.
So he came to that meeting to talk to me. He just wanted to meet me and talk to me. I knew who he was because he was advertising. It was Hupy and
Jacobson and Hupy.
Hupy at that time.
Yeah.
And so he talked to me afterwards, and he offered me a job. And at that time, I was working at Briggs & Stratton. I switched from, I was a welder at A.O. Smith. I went to work at Briggs & Stratton. I was there 12 years when Mike approached me about coming to the firm. Now, by this time, I'm in my mid-40s.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to give up 12 years of seniority. Of course, I wasn't making much money there. I was a trucker, not a piece worker. It was kind of a risky thing. But I used to take the voluntary layoff in summertime. People with more seniority could take a voluntary layoff. So new employees that were young kids that had families or just starting families, they would get laid off right away because they didn't have any seniority.
Right.
Well, a senior person could take the voluntary, so this guy could keep his job because he was starting a family. So I do that every year. So I took the voluntary layoff. I told Mike, well, I'll come to work in July, and I get called back in September, but I'll try it. So in 1991, I worked from July till September when they called me back at Briggs. And I liked it. I trained under one of the other investigators, and I really liked it. It was new to me.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a scary thing, thinking, do I really want to give up my job? Because what if this doesn't work out? Well, 1992 came around, the same thing happened. I took the voluntary. And then in September, when they were calling people back, I pulled a pin and I decided I'm going to go work full time because I liked the job, I liked the people, and it was a good decision because that year Briggs & Stratton cut back and nobody with my seniority got called back. So I would have been, if I would have turned Mike down, I would have been without a job. So it was just I think it was in the cards.
Well, and you had a passion for motorcycle riding and motorcycle rights. And obviously the firm was representing lots of motorcyclists and doing great things in the motorcycling community. It was a natural for you and the firm to get together.
I can say something to you now that I didn't dare say to Mike or you back in those days. But I would tell my friends, they're paying me to do things that I would be happy to do for free.
Well, we're glad you made a career out of it for 30 years. That's really amazing. So let's talk a smidge about Lobby Day. That's when the motorcycle activist groups go up to Madison, to the Capitol. You know, it's a yearly thing. We sponsor it. We get involved. Talk about it and what happens there and what's going on there now. What are the hot issues for motorcyclists now?
Okay. We usually do Lobby Day during the week. We could get a lot. Common sense would say you get a lot more people showing up on the weekend, but the legislators aren't there on a Saturday or a Sunday. So we planned for it in the middle of the week, hoping to get enough people to represent the organization. Traditionally, we get between 400 and 500 bikers to show up at Lobby Day from over the state. And we're very grateful that Hupy and Abraham sponsors a bus from the Milwaukee area. Those buses aren't cheap. These are the big Rockstar buses. And those buses fill up and they take everybody to Madison and back. And the issues vary. Right now, we're still working on some of the ethanol problems that we see for 4-cycle and 2-cycle engines. Ethanol is not a really, in fact, it says right in your manual, if you use ethanol gas, it avoids your warranty.
Yeah.
And federal law says you cannot put ethanol gas in small engines. So, but they're pushing ethanol. It's getting harder and harder to find gas stations with ethanol. They want to do blends and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's an issue. We're still dealing with the profiling issue, which people were getting pulled over and profiled just because they ride a motorcycle or because they have colors on their back, wear a patch. And that's not a new issue. I dealt with that back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's not a new issue, but it's still there. It hasn't gone away. We got definitions of a motorcycle clarified because they were lumping everything with 2 or 3 wheels in as a motorcycle. And some of the vehicles like the Polaris that have a steering wheel and brake pedal, we don't consider that a motorcycle if you got a steering wheel, a bucket seat, and a seat belt. So we're trying to get those things refined. There's a number of issues that come up every year. Some of them we've been fighting for 5 or 6 years. They're trying to change language and laws. Others are coming that are new. But every year, ABATE will put out an information sheet or a talking point sheet. And then the people that are going to Lobby Day are provided with that when they get there. So everybody's on the same page and up to speed.
Awesome. Behind the handlebars. Talk about that.
I love behind the handlebars.
I know, isn't it amazing?
I still wear my shirt when I go out to places. But Eric Ellis is. You guys are so fortunate to have this guy. He should have won. I think he has won awards, but
he's won a lot of awards. We love him. He's here in the room. He's doing the work behind the scenes. But obviously, we have an awesome, and I tell them this all the time, we just have a fantastic marketing team here at Hupy and Abraham. But when we hired Eric, it just took our team to a whole nother level. But talk about it. It's such a great thing, and talk about it for bikers.
Yeah, we go to different events and try to seek, if it's a bike show, we try to seek out some of the builders, some of the better known builders like Kevin Bass from Minnesota. They call him. He teaches kids in high school how to build motorcycles, which is really cool. We've talked to award-winning chopper builders. He's been out to Sturgis with me, and we've interviewed John Paul DiGiorgio from Mitchell Hair Products and now Tequila. He owns that tequila company.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and a really super nice guy. Does a lot of stuff for charity. But we get to interview some really, really interesting people, and we get to show the common, ordinary garage builder that a lot of people don't know, but he's building fantastic motorcycles. We go to the races, we see racers, we interview them. I mean, we just got to meet so many more people, and you know, as much of a thrill it is to be able to meet these people that you've read about or see on TV and things, it's a bigger thrill knowing that now you're letting your friends and the other people see these guys, that they don't have an opportunity to meet these people.
Well, I had no idea, you know, how awesome it is to be a rider. And obviously when I knew you and I started with the firm after that and seeing all the fun you were having and all that we were doing in the motorcycling community, I started to ride. I took the course with the instructor you had recommended. I got a motorcycle. I started riding. I took multiple trips out to Sturgis. I was there with you in Sturgis a number of times. And for those people that haven't ever ridden, it is really an awesome experience to be on two wheels, see the country out on two wheels, and do that. And I want to say thank you for getting me involved, helping me learn how to ride. I was a young kid thinking I knew a lot. And I'll tell you, when you're on two wheels, it's a scary thing. I mean, you really have to be prepared. You have to practice. You have to know your craft because when you're in a car with four wheels and a cage, that's a much different experience than it is being on two wheels.
Yeah, it's not a toy.
No,
it's not. It's for enjoyment, but it's not a toy. You have to take it serious.
And I'll tell you, and I know this hasn't really happened to you, but it's happened to me. The more injured motorcyclists that I've represented over the last 30 years, it does make it harder for me sometimes to get on two wheels because I find myself when I'm riding thinking about my past and current clients, and it does change your experience a little bit. And I am so hyper focused on making sure I'm looking out for other people because today, I think more so than ever before, you have so many distracted drivers. They're texting, emailing, doing all sorts of crazy things. And it's just, for me, has impacted, my enjoyment of being on two wheels because people just don't really care about other people today. And they're just not as safe, I think, as they used to be. And I know you and you've been riding for so long that you're just out there doing your thing.
I tell you, it's changed since I started riding. There wasn't that many cars on the road back then, and there was no cell phones. Now, I really don't enjoy riding in the city so much. That's why most bikers on the weekend, they head for up north or someplace else so they can get away from traffic and people. And I try to stay on back roads as much as I can instead of.
I do the same.
You only have to watch out for cows and tractors.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, I prefer going 30 miles an hour than I do going 80 miles an hour.
I want to see what's going on. I want to enjoy it.
I want to talk about some of your accolades. I've been out to Sturgis. You're in the Hall of Fame out there. Tell the listeners about what that meant to you to get inducted into the Hall of Fame out there.
That was really special, and they're still doing inductions to this day. They started back in 99 or 2000 or something like that. I was the first freedom fighter in the country. There's a special designation just for freedom fighters. I was the first freedom fighter in the country to get inducted in 2002. In June, there was some other guys got inducted that August, but I was already inducted in 2002 as the first freedom fighter because I knew the director at the time and he knew me, and he wanted to get me in there when he started this new section to give it a kick. But it's an honor. And there's so many people in there that are top of the line people. This year, Donnie Smith is getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. Donnie Smith is a well-known builder in Minnesota in the Twin Cities area. But we have a lot of friends that are in the Hall of Fame now, either in the regular Hall of Fame or in the Freedom Fighter Hall of Fame. My wife got inducted a couple of years ago. So right now, Vicki and I are the only husband-wife couple in the Hall of Fame that got there for our own reasons.
Yeah.
There's some other ones like Jill and John Parham from J&P Cycles.
Yeah.
But they work together in J&P.
Right.
Laura and Brian Clock were a couple from Clockworks. They got inducted through Clockworks. I got inducted as a freedom fighter. Vicki got inducted in the regular hall because of her excellency in management. So we're the only couple that's in there for our own purpose.
And we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, getting down to the end, but I would be remiss if we didn't say a shout out to your lovely wife, Vicki. The two of you together, and obviously the accident scene management, just talk briefly about accident scene management and how many people have been trained through your program, and just talk in general about what it does and what an awesome program it is.
Okay, well, Vicki, there was a guy. He's a pig. He was a pig farmer in Iowa named Slider Gilmore, and he was a paramedic, and he would volunteer at Sturgis every year, and he was giving these lectures, and he came to Wisconsin one time, talking about two-wheel trauma and what you can do at the scene of an accident. But it was a lecture type of thing.
Yeah. Some
pictures, but it's mainly a lecture. I invited Vicki to go to one of his presentations in Wisconsin a number of years ago. He came here for ABATE to Wisconsin. And after she saw that...
she's a nurse.
And she's a surgical nurse.
Yeah.
Working at Wausau Hospital at the time. And she said, well, I'd really like to expand on that program and actually teach hands-on. So I said, well, go for it. So she
teach hands-on, meaning have motorcyclists and riders learn on what to do in the event an accident happens, one of their fellow riders is injured, and just go through that whole process. Have some basic knowledge about what to do.
It's way more than a first aid course.
Oh, yeah. I've taken it.
It's a trauma course.
I've taught at it, so it's amazing.
And she puts together trauma bags, and they're actual true trauma bags.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy a first aid kit with bandages and a file and a tweezer, but what's that going to do for you at a motorcycle? So she puts together tools that you really need, tourniquets and sponges and gauze and, airway devices. And she wanted me to become an instructor. Her instructors have to be EMT or higher. They have to be in the medical field. Mike, through his graciousness, paid for me to go through EMT school in Wisconsin so I could be a licensed EMT, so I could help teach her classes.
Yeah.
I could be an assistant, but I couldn't be an instructor unless I was an EMT or higher.
Right.
So I did that, and Michael got on board. I think it was in 1997 or 98 already.
Yeah.
And started sponsoring these classes, and he's sponsored them ever since.
Well, awesome. Well, we're coming up on rider season. Almost going to be May. Watch for motorcycles. Give some people that are listening, talk to them about what they should be doing now we're getting into riding season.
Well, you said it right there. Watch for motorcycles. They always say May is Motorcycle Safety Month. We changed that Motorcycle Awareness Month, and actually every month is Motorcycle Safety Month.
Yeah.
That's what we feel. But we want people to start sharing the road again, because they haven't seen motorcycles for several months.
Right.
We're not down south. We don't ride all year round up here. I do, but most people don't. So we want people to start being aware that motorcycles are out there. Be careful of your blind spots. And we also talk to motorcyclists too, to be aware of where they position themselves in the lane, because there's a responsibility on the cyclists also. But we want people to watch out for motorcyclists. Give them room. Don't crowd them, because motorcyclists do a lot of lane changes and deviation in their lane. A lot of times people think, is this guy drunk, or what's he doing that for? But we're only on two wheels, so we have to dodge potholes or debris in the road and things like that. So we're doing maneuvers out in our own lane. So we want motorists to be aware of that. And it's basically courtesy. I mean, it should be common courtesy of everybody on the road anyhow, but it seems like if it was a Greyhound bus, they'd give him plenty of room, or a dump truck, and they give him room and kind of are aware of him, because that truck or that bus can hurt them.
Right.
When they come upon a motorcyclist, it's like they're not really afraid of us because we can't really hurt them in the car. So they crowd us more. They tend to take more chances or cut us off.
Yeah. And I think what you said really holds true. We haven't had to deal with motorcyclists on the road for months because it's been winter and snow and salt, and they're not out there. And now they're back, and you just have to be extra cautious to make sure something bad doesn't happen. Okay, before I let you go, all of our guests on the Tell Them You Mean Business podcast have to play a little game.
Uh-oh.
It's called the Hupy Hot Seat, and this is our motorcycle edition. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you'll answer, and we'll see if you get the answers right. It's just a fun little thing we do to end the podcast. So the first question is, what is the recommended safe following distance for a motorcycle when driving behind another motorized vehicle? Is it A, 2 seconds, B, 4 seconds, or C, 8 seconds?
A lot of it depends on the speed, but I would say I tend to go about 6 to 8 seconds is what I usually do.
Okay, the answer is B, 4 seconds from the manual. So I guess your 6 to 8 is even better than 4.
Well,
I guess
it depends
so.
on the speed.
Yeah. One way to and this is another thing. It says one way to ensure you are at the correct following distance is to choose a landmark on the side of the road and count off the seconds between the rear bumper of the car ahead and the front wheel of your bike as it passes the landmark. And I'm going to call, like, who in the world is out there doing that right now? As a rider, I'm not doing that. Just do your best. 4 seconds is the guide.
I'm too busy looking at the trees instead of doing math problems.
Exactly. Okay, true or false? When riding in a group, it is recommended to ride in a staggered formation rather than in a line.
That's true.
True, yes. This helps motorcyclists to stick together in a group and be more visible to drivers. It also helps when cars are passing to be able to easily maneuver around the group rather than a line of individual riders. And the last question, true or false? The most common cause of motorcycle accidents is from other drivers not seeing the motorcycle.
That could be true. I mean, I always say it's left turns at intersections, but that's because they don't see them, right?
Yeah, true. This is why we put out the message to watch for motorcycles, because if you're not looking for them, you can't see them. Mm-hmm. Well, Tony, I want to say a special thank you to you, not only for 30 years of amazing service at Hupy and Abraham, but for all you've done to make motorcycle riding safer in Wisconsin and throughout the country, for everything you and Vicky have done with accident scene management, and just for being an amazing human being and making the world a better place because you're in it. I'm happy and proud that I get to call you my friend. I really do mean it when I say I miss seeing you here at the office. I see you on Facebook, and we occasionally send messages back and forth, but I definitely miss your companionship, miss your friendship. You're an amazing human being, and thank you for being here today.
I miss everybody at the firm. I told that to Joe when she called me. I said, I really, really miss people. And I have to say that I am so humbled and so appreciative that Mike gave me that chance back in 1991. Like I said, he's willing to take me on and pay me for things that I was doing anyhow for nothing.
Yeah.
But it actually expanded my ability to do more.
Yeah.
Because he was allowing me to leave work and lobby or go. He let me go to Tennessee and lobby in Nashville for their helmet law.
Yeah. Well, you've done a ton, and very few people at the end can say that they've done as much as you've done to make something you're passionate about safer, better. And you should just be so proud of all you've done, and keep riding safe. I know you're going to be out there putting thousands of miles on again this summer, and I just want you to have a great season, but be safe.
Yeah, we're going to have fun this year.
Thank you.